My name's Kevin Lyles, I'm Chief Executive here at College Action Leicester, and I'd like to welcome you all here for this event as part of Democracy Week here in Leicester. And I've got two excellent gentlemen here to talk about big society. So first of all, can I introduce on my left here Sir Peter Soulsby. On my right is Graham Hudson. I would say to start from the beginning from Val's point of view in terms of big society. We have I suppose, a bit of an ambiguous approach to it at the moment. One of the things we would say, is, as the sort of support organisation for the city and county, is that we already have a big society going on. There's masses of volunteering going on, huge amounts of community and voluntary groups in operation, providing direct support and services to their local communities, some very small and some much larger, some already delivering public services. So it's not a new idea as far as we're concerned. We are cautious about big society because is it, as some are saying, a fig leaf to protect from the cuts? Perhaps it is going to be, and I think it's almost certainly going to be, because I don't think anybody in the community or voluntary sector will want to or be able to stand by and see people in need suffering because public services have gone to the wall.
The idea of a big society isn't something new. It's not something new here in Leicester, it's not something new in British civil society. If you look around in Leicester, there are examples of things that are broadly within the heading of a big society that go back centuries, never mind decades. Wiggiston and his philanthropy and establishing his trust. Look at, more recently, Cora, Everard's, you know, big people with big money establishing trusts. Look at the other end at social enterprise, cooperatives in Leicester. They're all about big society, and a lot of them go back a long way and have got a very proud history, both as manufacturing co-ops, as retailing, and so on. There's lots of examples of people committed to the big society in Leicester over a long period of time. Look at church groups, look at Gurdwaras, look at mandirs, look at mosques, look at neighbourhoods and community groups across the city, whether it be in Northfields or Saffron Lane, in St Matthews or Highfields. There's lots of people committed over a long period of time to the big society. Look also, though, at our National Health Service. That's part of the big society. Look at the schools. That's part of the big society. Look at what was done with the establishment of our National Health Service. Look at what was done with the Act in the 1870s, established the school boards, and began the provision of universal education. That's part of the big society. Those things complement each other. What was done by neighbourhoods, by communities, by philanthropists, by ordinary working people working together, complements what was done by government, local and national. It's not some differentiation, it's not one in conflict with the other. It is what we've achieved and what is still to be done, a matter of partnership of the public sector, the private sector and the wider community. Third sector, however one describes it nowadays, working together for the big society. Now, we've had from the government well, that's from the Conservatives. Big society, not big government. That's the dichotomy. That's the context in which they're talking about the big society. And that is what I find so deeply disturbing. Because we see, looking back at the past examples I've given, it is not a question of one or the other. It is a question of both needing to work together. Both the wider society and governments locally and nationally working together to meet the needs of our society. And I can't imagine anybody would disagree with the concept of the big society. I mean, the only person I can ever recall having denied the existence of society is Thatcher. And even Cameron's not going back to that. And I think, you know, the concepts behind it are ones that, you know, we're all very comfortable with, but not as an excuse for the devastation of public services. Not as an excuse, as the government is proposing, for the fragmentation of our education service. Not as an excuse for the fragmentation of our national health service. Frankly, if the government presses ahead with the fragmentation of those services, if it presses ahead with the savage and unnecessary, whatever they may say, cuts in public services that are going to be announced. I mean, a lot of people think we've already had the cuts from the government. Well, we haven't. We're getting them on the 20th, and that's only the start. If they press ahead with all of those things, it will be very clear that we are not all in it together, that we are not part of a big society, and that it is the most disadvantaged in our communities who will suffer. And it is those, many of them here today, who are part of the genuine big society who try to meet those needs, working with the people who have those needs. It is they who will suffer. Now, I don't want to talk for too long by way of introduction, except to say that many of you here will have heard me on many occasions being very critical of the last Labour government, of which I was nominally a supporter, although the whips didn't often feel that that was the way it looked when they looked at my voting record. But actually, one of the things I am actually genuinely proud of is the support that they were actually able to give to what's often nowadays described as the third sector. They did actually put a minister with some specific responsibility. They did take a number of initiatives that I think were very, very worthwhile in support of social enterprise, in support of genuine new initiatives that I think were very successful in providing support for those who seek to meet the needs of society more generally. And particularly, I'm also proud of Labour in local government, because we do, I think, both here in Leicester and elsewhere, have a record that we can be proud of in terms of providing support for organisations to meet the needs of communities and groups in ways in which those communities and those groups themselves perceive the needs to be identified. I have to say I'm not one who is a fan of the trend that has developed for commissioning of services. I am one who believes that local and national government ought to be providing core funding for organisations and not relying on just taking contracts and getting commissions from local government. But that's a wider discussion perhaps than for today. I just really want to conclude by saying that I believe that the big society is, of course, something we all want to see developed, promoted, and to be a part of. But the big society, I believe, is a smokescreen to cover what are going to be some devastating cuts in the services to the most needy, the most vulnerable in our society. And that's why I can't give it even one cheer. I believe that it's something, the reality of